we have this, working with this Spotify lab, we have these songs as our data. We have this, we're going to start with this find by artist function. We see that it's like, this is kind of like the formula to find a song. Like if you're thinking of like an ingredient, a recipe, it takes 2 ingredients. This data and the artist name to return like the matching artist. So for example, if our artist name is Aretha Franklin, we'd expect it to return this dictionary, or like a list that just consists of this dictionary, right? So let's start this. I'm gonna make a directory called Spotify project or something like that. CD into it, and then what would I do? Well, then I'll make directory for source and make another directory for tests. And you can see this is like this is my structure. Spotify project that has source and tests underneath it. And then from here, you can do a source like index.py if you want. I forget if I said, you could also do like an artist.py if you want. It seems like we only have, okay, we can do this. We'll just start with this. Index.py and then touch test index.py. So now if you then we can do code dot, I guess. So you can see what we created. We have this index.py. This is where our code base will go to start. And then we have this test index.py file. So this is going to read from here, right? We'll write our actual code in here, and then this will have to import probably from source.index, right? Because if you look at where we'll be typing PyTest from, it's how do we get to the index file? Well, we first go to source, and then we go to the index file. One thing, if some of you all were having problems running PyTest, just remember you can do like pip3 install PyTest. If this still broke, like I think it broke for some people, you can try this, Python 3-m. The M stands for module, PyTest. And you can see it is trying to find a test. It doesn't see anything. If we add in def test hello or whatever, and then just like assert 1 equals 1, right? So this will return true. Let's see. That works, okay? So this returns true, and therefore, and it finds this function because it begins with the word test and runs it. And then what we'll want to do now is start with this find by artist. And we probably should really start with the test. So we'll test find by artist. And remember, I don't have any argument names in here for the test. So test that find by artist, let's say returns songs of that artist. So now I'll say, okay, what do I expect to happen? Well, we start with a list of songs, right? Because I always have my setup first. So let's copy these. So start with our list of songs. And this is a list of dictionaries. And I'm going to expect that if I call find by artist and pass through songs and the name of the artist, like Aretha Franklin, then it's going to return matching, let's call these like Aretha songs, or matching songs, I don't know. So then what do we expect that this equals? Assert. So if I call this function, like think about what this function is supposed to do. I give it a list of songs, I give it the artist name, it should return to me this thing, like a list, but a list of all of them, right? There could be more than one. So I should assert that Aretha songs equals this list, okay? And now it's going to fit, now we can, even here we can run the test. I would call this matching songs because I think it should just be more generic. And now let's run PyTest. You can just run PyTest, right? And it will look for a folder called tests, and then look for a folder called test index.py. Like I said, if this doesn't work, try python-m pytest. You see that still gives me the same output. All right, so we run pytest, and what does it tell us? It says find by artist is not defined. So we go to fix this. We can just def find by artist, write pass, and rerun the test. So we just like, all right, you can kind of be kind of glib about it, like it tells you find by artist not defined, so let's just define it. And I think this will break. You see that? It still says find by artist is not defined. I think that's because we forgot about putting this dunder index.py thing here. Let's do that. No, sorry, init.py. So I'll put the init.py. We'll see if this works any better. Oh, I still don't think it will work. So now it says find by artist is not defined. All right, so now we want to look at our test file. Why is this not defined? Well, we're not importing it anywhere. We know that. So we say from this location, right? This is where we run pytest from source.index import index. Sorry, from source.index import find by artist. Import this function. Right. So from here's source.index import the find by artist function. And now let's run pytest. Okay, perfect. We got a new error message. Find by artist takes 0 positional arguments, but 2 are given. Why is that? Well, it says that the issue is that we gave it 2 arguments, but we should have given it. We expect these 2 arguments there. So the problem is that there's a mismatch. You know, this thing is providing 2 arguments, but if I look at my function, I have 0. So I need to line these up. So this is songs and the artist name. So now I'll just do songs and the artist name. And then run the function again and see if I get any further. And now here's like kind of now we know that things are kind of set up and it's time for us to write the logic of the code. So here the return value is none. Why? Because when we call this function, it doesn't do anything. So we're obviously getting a return value of none, and then we're checking that none is, here. None returns this list. So if you want, what we could do is we could put a breakpoint right here. And what's going to happen is this function's going to get run. Sorry, this test is going to get run. It's going to call this function, pass through Aretha Franklin, and then we'll pause right here. So let's run this. And here we are. Index.py, line 2, find by artist. So we have 2 pieces of data. We have songs, which is this list of dictionaries. We have the artist's name. And now these are ingredients, so we need to like kind of write the recipe that's going to return to us this thing, this list. So how do we do that? For song and songs, return the song. If song of artist equals, it should be the artist name, right? And I broke it. Oh, that's annoying. I forget why that happens. This just happens in list comprehensions in the debugger. There's some word you can call. I forget what it is. But this would generally work. I forget. If anyone knows it, just let me know or shout it out. But this should be fine. And then we can return this. And then just run the test again, and we pass. So why do we pass? Again, if you don't believe it, well, put a breakpoint here. Let's take a look. Maybe this happened too quickly. This is going to call find by artists, pass through the list of songs, pass through Aretha Franklin, call the function, pass those arguments here, check that the artist for each song equals the artist's name, and return the song if it does. Return all matching songs. And then we can call pytest, take a look at our matching songs, and it looks the same. Continue, we believe it. And then just remove the breakpoint. So just like points to remember is like the overall structure is source and then tests, right? These are at the same level. They're siblings, another way to put that, right? They're sibling folders. Here we're running PyTest from the parent folder from here. And that means that we can see, right, these two. And so when I run PyTest, it's going to, and runs my test file. We're importing my code from source.index. Remember, we need this init file in order to actually do this. We don't know why. And then, breakpoints. Breakpoints will help you. The other thing is, a lot of people ask, like, can you hard code it? Or should you, is it right to hard code it? The answer is, like, hard code the result, I think is what they mean. The answer is yes. Okay. One, it's kind of like explicit, like it's kind of more clear in a way. It's like, all right, you pass through Aretha Franklin, you expect to get back Aretha Franklin, right? You expect to get back like this list that has Aretha Franklin. So it's kind of clear in a way to me. The other thing is, the alternative that people were saying was, oh, well, can I just like do this? And maybe put this as my artist name. Or like this seems shorter. Right? This is like kind of more code. Like, isn't this better? The answer is no, it's not better. The reason why is because, let's say there's a bug. Like, we're kind of testing our own logic. And let's say like we did not really understand like our error, and we make a mistake by just returning like the rank or something. Well, and we do that in both locations, right? Because we're the same human, so we make the same mistake twice. Well, this is going to pass, right? Because this code is going to produce the same output as this code because it's identical. But you're not actually testing your there's no way to verify that your output is what you expect, right? So even though this passes, I'd say it's susceptible to like a bug, to like human error, right? So you really should just be like pretty explicit about it, and some people also say, well, won't this take a long time and things like that? Just remember, like, the shortest stories in programming are expected to take, like, when I was a developer, generally you point the stories, meaning you estimate how long they'll take, and it's 1 point, 3 points, or 5 points generally is what you want. 1 point story takes half a day. 3 point story is like 2 days. And 5 point is around 3 days. So the shortest story is 4 hours that you're allocating for it. So if you allocate like an hour and a half to writing a test, like this took a minute, but if you allocate, like sometimes you might take an hour or two to write out all the tests for a function and understand what's going on, and okay, all right, now I get the bug. All right, now let's write some tests. Right? Like, yeah, that's not a big deal. Like, they want you to write it. Let's make sure this thing works, rather than, all right, push it to production because we wanted to save a few keystrokes over here, and then all of a sudden we are like quickly trying to fix this error, and it's breaking our code base, right? Like, this is not a problem. Like, I don't know. In other coding cultures, maybe it's a problem, but normally people will, over the long term, people will much prefer that you kind of are careful. We write these tests. This can be a little bit longer, right? Because we're navigating, this is our code base. This is still pretty short. And then you want to know what this thing does. Like, this kind of serves as your documentation as, okay, call this function find by artist. What does it do? Well, here's an example. Give it an artist name, like Aretha Franklin, and it will return to you these matched. It'll call the function with these two arguments, return to you this list of dictionaries, right? And you can kind of see this, right? The same way when you look at documentation for like Foursquare or anything else, what does it do? It gives you an example and then shows you the output that you expect back. You're doing the same thing. Like, you're writing basically documentation for your code here. Like, your tests are supposed to serve as documentation.
Oh, Jeff, just wanted to double check. When you said stories, you're talking about like functions, right? Like, you're saying that the smallest possible time frame for a function, like to write tests for a function should be 4 hours?
Yeah, it's not necessarily a function. A story is generally like a bug or a feature. And one thing to note is lots of times say there's a bug, right? To the product manager or to, the bug is, hey, this data is not loading in the database like the way we expect. Or when I query this data, like it could be that vague. When I query this data, I'm not getting back, Aretha Franklin. The problem could be occurring anywhere. It could be, all right, the query is somehow not working. It could be the data is not loading the database. It could be like most of the data is loading fine, but for whatever reason, this isn't, So even just kind of identifying what the bug is, that's normally what takes so long to occur. And the fix may be, one function, two functions, but generally the most of the effort and most of the time that's spent is not spent writing code, but rather understanding the problem, reading code. And that's also why like tests are so valuable is, if you're minimizing the bugs, if you're having documentation, if I'm able to quickly, what does this find by artist function do? Okay, cool. Here it takes in this artist name. Wait a second. Let's put a breakpoint here to see how it works. Okay. And then just run the function and I can get a sense of it. Right, like it makes it easier to navigate your code base. So that's why these things take so long. Like the writing of code takes no time at all, right? It's or lots of time. It takes some time, but a lot of your time will be spent navigating a code base, and even navigating a code base that's like following all the best practices is pretty hard. In the example, is the idea to test one representative example, not the whole collection? I would say yes. Right? So the question is like, does one example prove the rule? If it's, you have to use some logic for it. But yeah, like it does, other people kind of asked about, well, what, sorting these. Well, when you sort these songs, like what would we do? What you'll literally do is, let's just write the test for it. Def test sort, I forget the name of the function, but it was alphabetize. Sorts the songs. So what I would do is just, here's my input, or I guess we'll use the same input, and then we'll have my sorted songs, and then I'll just have the output, and the output is L. So these two have to switch. All right, and now I'm going to expect or assert that alphabetize. I can't spell it. Of the songs equals the sorted songs. All right. Now, people were like, one question that got asked was, well, don't we need like 100 songs to really check this? And probably not, honestly. Like if we are successfully sorting 3 songs, then we're successfully sorting 100. It takes some knowledge about programming and things like that, and like some sort of intuition that you develop as a developer. But I think you probably have that sense that, okay, if we're able to take 3 songs that are out of order by the song name, and then we wind up with them sorted in the right order, like just kind of think through it. Are there any cases where that wouldn't, where this wouldn't work? I can't think of any, so there is a lot, real thinking that does have to occur here, right? And then how would you do this? From source.index, alphabetize. I really feel like Sesame Street or something. Okay, def. And then we'll do def alphabetize. This takes in a list of songs, and then it's like sorted of the songs, key equals lambda for each song of the song name. I forget if it's song name. Song of song. Is that it? No, I'm missing something. I need to do song colon song of song. So sort by the song name, and then run it and run the test. And like I'm not sure if it works or not, but just run the test and it will tell you. So it told me it worked. If I mess something up, it would throw an error, right? So that's why like these, I don't know, like that's why I kind of like just writing tests. It's like All right, just if you do this properly, you don't have to think through. You can really just be experimental, which is kind of the point in coding. All right, so hopefully this helped. We'll give some, maybe like a little bit of more time on this, but I guess we'll give some more time on this, and I'll push this video so you guys can view this. And then the next thing that we'll do is keep going, kind of work with another API lab where we pull this together. So we'll work with this recipes API lab, and then we'll move on to SQL. If you're looking for a challenge over the next couple of days, kind of like I've been reiterating, all right, you're starting to write out a code base. You saw how I did it. Start implementing this in your project, right? This is how your project, right, becomes more real. All right, enjoy the Super Bowl. See you on Tuesday. Bye, gang.